So if you're thinking about making candles at home, you're going to need some basic pieces of equipment to start that process. In this video, I go through the basic pieces of equipment that you need to start candle making at home. Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reese from the Caird Company. We're a home, pet and skincare brand, and on this channel, we talk about everything that's involved in running our small business. Now, if you like these videos, if you can remember to subscribe to the channel, we're a brand new channel, and I want to get those channel subscribers up, so if you can help us out, that really would be appreciated. But other than that, let's get straight into the video. So you're thinking about making candles at home, you've got to start with some pieces of equipment. Now, it can be quite pricey, but there's also ways for you to save a little bit of money. That will require you to shop around. I'm going to get straight into the basic pieces of equipment that you need, and I will tend to show you the cheaper items so that you can save a little bit of money in starting your own business. So let's get straight into the video. Now remember, you can always shop around. Don't always go for the most expensive item, and certainly don't go for the most cheap item. If you go too cheap, you'll end up having to buy twice. So I tend to go for somewhere that's around about the middle pricing for when it comes to the equipment. Starting a candle business can be quite expensive, so make sure you shop around to get the best value. Now the main item that you're going to require when you're just starting out is going to be a wax melting jug. Now, if you don't know what this is for, this is where you put the wax in and then you heat this up, and I'll talk about that in a second. But you can buy one of these off of Amazon. I think this is a brand new one, as you can see, nice and shiny. I think you can buy these for something about $17.99. Sometimes a little bit cheaper, sometimes a little bit more expensive, but somewhere about $17.99. They're really, really good. They could take quite a lot of wear and tear, especially if you overheat this section, and certainly if you overheat in this section. They're made of a really thin aluminium that allows it to heat up quickly, which then allows you to melt your wax even quicker. Once you progress through your candle business, you can then start to mark these up with the names or fragrances that you're going to use. That saves you from having to clean them every time you've used them. But if you're just starting out, buy one or two of these and that should get you going. Now the second item that you're going to need is you're going to need a method to heat up that wax. Now what we did when we started off is we used the double boiler method, and for that all you need is a large metal pan. What you do then is you put a little bit of water in the pan, you take your wax jug that's filled with wax, pop it in there and put it on a low heat. Now when it comes to one of these pots, you can essentially use one that's lying around, as long as you're not going to use it for cooking items later on. I would certainly mark that up to say candles only or wax only, and make sure you don't use it for food once you've used it for wax. Now when you're just starting out, you can either use one that's already in the house, but once you've used it for wax making, make sure you label it up for wax making so you don't use it for cooking food again. Now you can either use that one or you can go out and buy one from the shops. To be fair, they're about £30, £20 to £30, depending on where you buy it from and how big you go. I think we got this from IKEA. As you can see, it's a fairly decent size. It actually allows you to put 2 or 3 wax melting jugs in at a time, so you can actually start to build up your production and your scaling a little bit better. But if you're just starting out and you're not sure if you're going to be turning your candle making it into any sort of business, then by all means use one that's lying around, but make sure you label it up for wax only once you've used it. And that leads me on to the next item. Now, once you've got your wax melting away in the double boiler in its wax jug, you're going to have to stir it with something. Now, that could be a plastic spoon, that could be a wooden spoon. It's up to you really. Again, once you've then used these items for wax making, they can't be used for food again. You can't do any sort of cross-contamination. Again, I think we actually haven't used these ones. I think we bought these ones out of IKEA. I think they're £1 or something, and this plastic one bought somewhere probably a couple of pounds. It's up to you what you want to use. I actually prefer this plastic one because it's got holes in the middle here. When it comes to stirring the wax, it just mixes it really well, and actually, for whatever reason, it reduces the amount of air bubbles, whereas I find that with the wooden spoons, you tend to get a little bit more air bubbles, and if you're just starting out in candle making, you don't want air bubbles in your wax. Now what I would do is I would have a couple of different spoons so that when you're making a large batch, especially of different fragrances, you can use the spoons, making sure you're not intertwining them and getting the fragrances mixed up, and then once you've used them, give them a clean and set them aside. Now moving on to the next item. Once you've melted your wax in your double boiler and your wax pot and you've stirred it, you can see there's a running trend here, you've stirred it, you're going to have to make sure that you're getting it to the correct temperature. Now that's when one of these come in handy, and that's a thermometer. Now you can either use a digital thermometer or you can use a manual thermometer, one that you dip in For us, I find this one a lot better, a lot more easy to use, because you don't have to clean the thermometer, you don't have to leave it in over time. You literally just point and shoot, and then it tells you the temperature of it. They're very accurate as long as you read the user instructions, something like 30 centimeters away you've got to point it at, and it gives you a very accurate reading of the wax. Now, using a digital thermometer, you can actually measure multiple different types of waxes. So if you've got wax melt set aside and you're also making candles, you can use this multiple times. You don't have to clean it, and it just speeds it up. Now, I think we bought this one again off Amazon. It was certainly under £20, probably somewhere about £16, £17, something like that. You could pick up all different types. I'm not even sure what this type is. A Ventec. We've had it for quite a while, use it all the time, dropped it, sort of bashed it, and it still works. I would do a little bit of review on Amazon, because you can always buy ones that are more expensive, about £60, £80, or you could buy £15 ones, and they last about the same amount of time. Now, moving on to the next item. Now, not everybody would agree with this, because you can always use other items that I'll talk about in a second, but when you start making your candles, you want to make sure that you're getting accurate measurements. You want to make sure that you're getting the wick centered, and you want to make sure that you're holding that wick vertical, because if you don't do that, then your candle's not going to burn properly. It'll peel over to one side, and it just won't work. So I would always advise that people get one of these. Now, I don't mean this specific wick holder. It's a wick holder, by the way. There's multiple different types. You've got claw ones, you've got sort of various ones that here look like crosses. They're made of plastic, some are made of metal, this one's made of metal. We bought this one on Amazon, a pack of 40 or something, maybe for about £5, something like that. Essentially just, let me show you. Essentially just sit in the middle of the glass or tin or whatever vessel you're using, allows you to pull the wick up, nip it across, and it keeps the wick vertical. That way that you get an even burn when it comes to burning the candle. I would always advise somebody to use one of these when they're starting off their candle making, to make sure that they're getting that vertical wick, to make sure that the candle actually functions properly when it comes to burning. Now, the last piece of equipment that I'm going to talk about is something that's incredibly important to your candle making. It's important for your candle making with regards to wax, but it's also important with regards to fragrance, and that is a proper set of scales. Now, this is the second set of scales that we've bought, and it was probably priced around £70. We had a cheaper set of scales just to begin with, but they weren't very accurate, and they didn't go all the way down to the 0.0 grams that we were after. Now, these scales are actually calibrated, and that means that these scales have been tested under certain circumstances to be able to provide the exact measurement of the weight that you're going to sell. That's something that you're going to have to consider if you're looking to sell your products in the UK. But if you're just starting off candle making, then you can always use cheaper scales. You could buy a set of scales for about £10, probably cheaper off of Amazon. And that will allow you to get probably a bit more of a rough measurement of the wax and the fragrance that you're using. But it's certainly something that you have to think about. You can't just eyeball it. You can't just take a rough measurement when it comes to the fragrance or the amount of wax and hope that you're going to get a proper burning, nice smelling candle. Now, there's a good chance that you've got scales already in the kitchen. Either you use them or somebody else in the household uses them for baking. Now, if you're going to use them for candle making, I would certainly set them aside and mark them up for candle making only in the future, and don't put them back in the kitchen. It's very easy to spill fragrance or wax on the scales. Mine are covered in mess. And if somebody then goes to use them for cooking again, that could then get into the food, and you don't want that to happen. So either buy new ones, or if you've got them, set them aside and only use them for candle making. Now, I said the set of scales was the last piece of equipment that I was going to talk about, but I've just got to mention two other pieces of equipment, call them bonus pieces of equipment. And for me, that is kitchen roll and alcohol spray. You're going to need so much kitchen roll when it comes to cleaning out the jugs, cleaning out the spoons, just cleaning up after yourself. Get as much of this as you can, and don't be scared to use quite a lot. It helps soak up all the wax and the fragrance if you spill any. And the alcohol spray, which I've talked about in another video, we use quite a lot when it comes to cleaning the vessels before we actually put the adhesive pad in, or essentially before we use them. But I've also found it very helpful when it comes to cleaning out the wax jugs as well. It helps, doesn't soak out the fragrance, or maybe it does, I don't know, but it certainly cleans them out a little bit. So if you've got a heavy set fragrance that you're just struggling to get clean off of the jug, think about buying some of this stuff. It helps clean it a lot quicker, I've found anyway, and you can also use it for your surfaces. It helps lift any fragrance that's been left or spilled over on them. And that's it. That's all the basic pieces of equipment that I think that you need to start candle making at home today. Now, like I said before, make sure you shop around to get a really good deal and a really good price. And some of the items you might already have in the house, but if you are going to use them for candle making, set them aside and don't use them again for baking or anything else. Now, if you found this video helpful, if you could like this video, subscribe to the channel, it really does help us out. I think we're sat around the 100 subscribers mark just now, which is, for me, I think it's awesome. But every new subscriber always helps. And if I don't see you through the week, have a great day and enjoy your candle making.